All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Purple Podcast. This is episode number 45 now. This is going to be our The Last of Us, episode 9 recap and review. This is the finale, guys. This one titled Look for the Light. And, it was a good one. I'm not going to delay much with it. Getting straight into it here, really enjoyed how at the beginning of the episode, instead of, our general previous episode recap, they actually gave us the recap of the whole season. So a good way to, just show us how far we've traveled in this journey and how long that we have, gone with these characters who we've lost along the way as well. So really set the tone and set up some of those feelings that we experienced or the characters experienced in here, and what Ellie says later on, Joel as well, in just terms of, they understand that this journey they've traveled so far along this journey, and they got to keep going on here. But what a wild journey we've had. It's been a great season. This last episode was a great ending to it. Super excited for season 2. So let's just hop right into it, guys. The first thing that we see here in this episode is a incredibly pregnant woman running through the woods. We hear screams coming out behind her, presumably an infected individual or individuals. She's crawling through the forest. We get one of those, nice little chase scenes where someone's going to trip a couple times, have to stop and take a break. So you're like, get moving, get moving. You feel that anxiety as she's running. But escaping, I don't know if I already set the tone in terms of, or the setting in terms of the where she's at. She's like in these woods, this wooded area. She ends up coming to a clearing where there is a little, I guess, farmhouse, because there's a silo as well. Not sure if you all noticed it, but I did notice that on the silo there is a firefly symbol. So we see that this is presumably a firefly outpost, hideout, whatever you may call it. But this woman approaches the farmhouse there, goes inside, runs upstairs. Her water breaks. Oh no, she's about to have a kid. You're freaking out for her. So she's getting chased still at this point, and goes into a room, barricades herself with a, just a little door prop. Probably could have done a better job. Where she's, gonna wait to, or not necessarily wait, but just give birth. Her water broke. It's time to fucking rock. As this is happening, we hear more so the infected coming up the stairs very soon, starts banging on the door. She pulls out a knife. I noticed that this is Ellie's knife, so already probably had a pretty good idea of who this is going to be, who it was. But she grabs this knife, and I thought immediately, I was like, oh my God, she's going to C-section herself right now and get her baby out, which I don't know if that would have been a great plan, considering she'd probably bleed out and the baby would have been fucked at that point. But anyways, this infected breaks in. One thing that I thought of here is, how does the infected know that she was there? Like, how was it heat-seeking missiling her? Was it the noise? Was it the smell? Was she, leaking some kind of fluid? I have no idea, but it is able to track her. It still has eyes, so maybe that's how it knows. But I guess it's not dumb either. It was able to see her, follow her all the way into the house, and also go upstairs and break into it. But I definitely thought about that. I tried to look to see if maybe there, on the building, there was any kind of like cordyceps overgrowth, because they mentioned earlier in the season that infected can feel that, but didn't seem to be the case. It just was able to find her, and we accept that for what it is. But this infected breaks down the door. We get a little fight as she's, laying down. This person, let's just go ahead and announce her name. This is the character Anna, portrayed by Ashley Johnson, who actually happens to be who voice acted Ellie in the video game. So really cool that the show has been able to incorporate these people who had a major part in the original video game there. I mentioned it last episode as well, but here we get another one, and just throughout the season, I guess there's only been, 3. There might have been more here or there, but in terms of like actually some pretty major roles, or not necessarily major, but like significant, not just like an infected. So Ashley Johnson, who voiced Ellie, plays Anna right here, who turns out to be Ellie's mom. So she gives birth. Gosh, I'm kind of jumping around here, but Perry, that was another one played by Jeffrey Pierce, who is the voice of Tommy in the video game. And then James from last episode, played by Troy Baker, is who is voiced by Joel in the video game. So 2 henchmen and Ellie's mom. Like I was getting at, this woman ends up giving birth right here and there following this infected fight while she's back on the ground. She does stab it. Once again, I have that issue where it's like, God damn, people, why don't you know to immediately stab it in the head? Why waste a body shot? Why do that? I guess you can't always, aim it so well in a scuffle like that, but you would imagine that that's what you should really be targeting in the early going there. But she has this baby, sees the baby. The umbilical cord is still intact. What's important about this is that Anna looks to her leg. She sees that she is bitten, so in her hurry, grabs the knife, cuts the umbilical cord, and makes the announcement saying that, you fucking go, Ellie, you tell them. So pretty cool. This is Ellie's origin in the way of a few things here. So not only is it her birth, so it's her literal origin, her welcoming to the world, her birth, but she also, we see that knife that she ends up with further along in the story, as we pick up with her. And then also we get the idea, or, not necessarily the idea, like this has to be essentially the reason why she's not infected. She was very briefly in contact with the fungus, through their umbilical cord. So somehow or another, the science scienced, and she is not infected there. Then we cut into that beautiful intro. Was there any other, I guess a couple episodes probably cut straight to the start that way, but another flashback that we get in this series. We've had a few of them along the way, and I appreciate them. Some people have been openly critical about the flashbacks, and they want to stick to the main plot, but hey, this is for character development, and I want to see this stuff. I am interested in it. I don't care what you think about it. It's not filler in my opinion. It all contributes to the story, so I like that they took the time to show us these things. But we get the intro, our last intro of this season. I wonder if they change it up for season 2. Probably not, but you would imagine that they do a little bit something to it here or there. But then we come back to this same timeline. We see Marlene and a group of fireflies approaching this outpost farmhouse that we had just been at with Anna. They walked up to it. They noticed that the door is locked. So, immediately that rings, what the hell's going on? Something's up. They get into the farmhouse, begin walking upstairs. We hear, very quietly, some singing. We know that Anna's in there. We know that she has a baby. We know that she's infected. How far along is she? These are the questions that I'm asking, or the question that I'm asking at this point. Marlene's looking for her, asking out for her, but then she finally opens the door. We see Anna, and she's, not turned yet. Obviously, she's singing, which is a risky game to play, because how long does this stuff last, or how long does it take to fully infect you to where she's going to be a danger to her child? I don't know. And is she going to be able to control it? It seems like she was able to fight it off. Maybe it's like a motherly instinct thing. I don't know. But you would think that she would maybe lock herself away from her baby, but I guess it wasn't all that long potentially. And I don't know. She decides to stay with her. She's with her baby. Marlene comes in. It's like, oh shit. She sees that she's infected. She has this baby. And Anna says, take her. Take her. She needs food. I can't feed her. I don't want to infect her. The umbilical cord was cut before is what she says. So a little fib from Anna here. And, what else would you have done? I will probably, I don't know how I would have played it, but she says, I cut it before I was bit. Marlene gives her a look like, are you sure? And she says, before. Take her, go. And then we find out that, Marlene and Anna, this relationship that they have, apparently Marlene and Anna have been friends from the very beginning. So, prior to the breakout and everything, they were friends all along, which does carry the weight of this situation as well. These are best friends. We don't get a full look into that, but I don't think that necessarily was necessary. But Marlene does take her. Anna then pleads, saying, kill me, please kill me. Marlene says, I'll take her, but I can't kill you. But quick to her decision, or quick to double or turn around on this, she hands the baby, or hands Ellie to the other individuals that are with her from the Fireflies, takes a gun, says, hold her ears, and walks in. All business, no fucking around, has to get it done. Pop, we don't see it happen, we hear it happen, and Ellie cries out. We then flash to a close-up of Ellie, so we're done with our flashback area. We have Ellie's backstory, or in terms of her origin, as well as we get a little bit of insight into Marlene and why Ellie would be important to her as well. But we cut back to Joel and Ellie. They are approaching Salt Lake City in this scene here. Very early on, we feel the lingering effects of last episode and the weight that it is, holding on Ellie as well. You can tell she's very much in her own world. A very effective piece of, I guess, just work here and choice by the directors is, they muffle the volume. So when Joel is yelling out for Ellie, Ellie is not hearing it. They make it, we hear it, but it's muffled. It's meant to be like, we're not hearing it either. We're in Ellie's head here. So she's in her own world thinking this. She is clearly very affected from the events of last episode. Still, this was a question that I asked at the very end. It's like, she can't be the same at this point. How is she going to handle it? Is she going to shut it out? Is she going to discuss this with Joel? How are we going to go about this? So it seems like, she's just kind of in her own world here. But Joel plays this really, it's just that awkward guy doing too much to make someone cheer up kind of deal. He's like, he knows, he can tell that she's affected, upset, and instead of directly, I guess, discussing it and her handling it, which, is him being respectful to the way she wants to process this as well. He's just doing, little things to try to make her cheer up in this, kind of scene here. So the first thing we see, he comes up, he's like, hey, I got a can of Chef Boyardee. That's the second shout out of the series or of the season so far regarding Chef Boyardee. So shout out to the chef, as I mentioned earlier. I think this would have been episode, 4. Yeah, episode 4. I was a Chef Boyardee myself at one point in time. It's still something that I hold near and dear to the heart. So nice to see it getting some love on a show that I also love from a video game that I loved. But he also brings over Boggle as they're walking. He's like, hey, I saw a guitar. It was broken, but maybe I can teach you someday. Would you want to do that? So he's just doing too much here, and you feel it for Joel. He's trying to cheer her up. He cares about her. This is his, pseudo daughter at this point. As we get nearer to, or just continue traveling, they approach a building. Joe says, okay, so here's what we're going to do. Ellie quickly says, yep, we're going to cut through this building, climb up to the top, and scout out the area. And it's funny. It shows, it's a good way to highlight the character growth between these two, and just also, just how well they know each other at this point in time. They've traveled so damn far. You would expect that, they know each other like the back of their damn hand. So Joel says, actually, I found some dynamite in there. I think we just blow it all up. He does get a little rise out of her here. She says, oh, really? He's like, no, what we're going to do is we're going to walk through the building, climb to the top, and scout it out. So I thought that was a funny bit of dialogue there and effective in showing, their relationship here. They're still the ball busters, and they know they know each other pretty well at this point. As they're climbing to the top of this building, there's a little event where Joel needs to boost Ellie up to drop down a ladder, so they're continuing to climb, get as high as they can here. Ellie goes up, gets the boost, begins dropping down the ladder, and what a dumbass on Ellie's part. You didn't need to do this, but she got excited. Excuse me for that burp, but she got excited about it. She sees something or another, completely drops the ladder. Could have completely just knocked Joel over, injured him, anything like that, which could have been a death sentence in this world. But Joel climbs up the ladder, begins running after Ellie. She's running. He's like, "Come on, follow me, follow me, follow me!" And we get to an iconic part of the video game, and I love that they included it here. A question that I had, and I don't recall thoroughly, and I made sure to not rewatch the video game just because I wanted to experience some of this stuff for the first time again because I haven't played it in so long. But I thought this scene, the giraffe scene, was earlier in the video game, but I think I'm completely wrong. I think it was right here. I think I might have mentioned that earlier in this series as well. It's like, oh, we didn't get the giraffe, but we got the bunny and the monkeys or whatever. I don't know. But we did get there's a little Easter egg in the second episode of a giraffe stuffed animal. So, hey, they pay it off. We see these giraffes here. Very pretty scene. Shows the beauty in a very dark world. They get to, experience this. And Ellie's, having a very tough time. So it's good that she gets to, have this incredibly unique experience that, I guess you could go to a damn zoo in the real life world. But, hey, she gets to pet and feed a giraffe in the apocalypse, in the wild at this point. Question for you guys at home: is cordyceps just does it not work in animals yet either? Are infected not drawn to animals? Do they have no reason to want to infect them? Because these giraffes, monkeys, I can imagine monkeys because they're going to be more difficult to catch. I guess giraffes would be too, but I feel like they would get cornered because they're so damn big if they're just running through cityscape with buildings falling all over. But no worries. We do finally get that giraffe scene. As they walk up to this ledge here, we have a pretty cool callback to another part in episode 2. We see this grand scene, another probably one of the best scenery episodes that we've had since episode 2 as well, seeing a city again, a large city and all the buildings, and it just really sets the tone for that whole Last of Us feel there. But as they walk up to this balcony, they look over. Joel says, "Is it everything you hoped for?" This is a direct quote, exactly the same question that he asked her as they approach a ledge in the first or the second episode of this season. They look over, and Joel asks that question. Ellie responds a little bit differently in the front, but she ends it the same exact way, saying, "You can't deny that view." So funny. It's something that I noticed. I was definitely thinking, it's like, I've seen this before. Wasn't this in another episode? So I went back, I did look, and sure enough, this is exactly what I had mentioned and thought of there. Good dialogue here, as I was touching on at the very beginning, the wild journey that we've been on. We're not going to stop it here. Joel does ask this. He prompts this of Ellie, says, "Hey, it's probably going to be dangerous ahead. I'm not saying for certain, but, everything that we've done, there has been danger. So, hey, we don't have to do this. We can go home. We can drop it here, and we can leave." This is probably, this is exactly what Joel wants. He wants her to answer yes to this question. He wants to get the hell out. He is not... he's not really excited for the possibility of what might become of this part of the journey coming to the end here. He has some kind of spidey sense or premonition that something's just not going to be quite right, and he doesn't think it's even really necessarily worth continuing forward. But Ellie says, "Hey, we did all this. We've lost these people along the way. We can't stop now. We started this." Basically her direct quote is, or literally her exact quote is, "But there's no halfway with this. We finish what we started. And Joel appreciates this answer. He's like, you know what? This is the right thing. But fuck, I wish it wasn't kind of deal. But he gives this decision to her, which doesn't in the end. But anyways, we cut to our next scene here where they are on the ground. They're approaching this camp. Ellie asks Joel, he's like, oh, is this Fedra? He says, no, this is Army. They actually set this up right after the outbreak for the injured along the way. Obviously, they didn't last very, very long. I actually was in one of these. This is exactly where they brought me. And a really important, or not necessarily important, but interesting and profound bit of dialogue here where Ellie asks about Sarah. She immediately says, like, did you come here with Sarah? And if we recall back to pretty much every other point, I don't know if they had one very soon after their outbreak where or their breakthrough where he talks about Sarah or anything like that, or she asked about it. But, in normal conversation here, she brings up Sarah and Joel doesn't recoil. He doesn't say, you don't ask about that. He's opened himself up to those feelings again. He's able to talk about her without, getting pissed off because he's shut it all away because he doesn't want to remember it. He's comfortable in this. So he's had that breakthrough. So he answers directly right away. He doesn't recoil at all. She asks about Sarah, says, hey, did you come here with Sarah? He's like, no, actually she was already gone. He's like, oh, then what was it for? It's for this here. And she goes, the guy who shot and missed. And a big turn here, which, I didn't really expect this. I don't know if this is in the video game or not, but he says, I was the guy who shot and missed. And this is big, It wasn't actually a fight or anything like that. It was Joel trying to take his own life from the loss of Sarah. This is actually a question that I prompted earlier in this season as well on one of the episodes. I said, everything that drives Joel is family. Say he lost Tommy on that first day. He has Sarah and Tommy both gone. Would he have killed himself? The answer is yes. He tried to, even though Tommy was still alive, which goes against a bit of his character and the decisions he's made, and that family still drives him. But I guess he found that motivation following, the failed attempt at taking his own life. But yes, he did. He did try. He lost Sarah. That was his family. He lost purpose. Ends up getting around saying or asking, basically, he's like, why I'm telling you all of this? He's like, why I'm telling you all of this is, and she says, I know what you're telling us. She says, I reckon you do know why I'm telling you this. And she says, well, she actually does it because she says, so time heals all wounds, I guess. And Joel says, very beautiful, very pretty. Well done, Joel. You light-hearted, sweet-hearted man. You love your daughter figures, don't you? He says it wasn't time that did it. And they have this look at each other, which is good. There's family that moves you along. And, Joel's getting at this because she just had a really rough time. She had something that could make her, lose hope for the world, lose sight of that. But, having someone you can lean on, someone that you can rely on, someone that you can love can take pain away. But really pretty. I think this is one of my favorite scenes of dialogue in the whole entire season. I think it's really good from the whole level of her asking a pretty innocent question, but it is about Sarah, something that he's been very sensitive of throughout the whole entire series. Him asking right away, him revealing and telling you a bit about him, his backstory. He's been a closed book, but he gives us this here. He tells us that, hey, it was me. I tried to kill myself, actually. So pretty profound, pretty good scene. Really loved it. But in their same way, not to stay too long in this ooey gooey mishy bit of scene. They're like, let's continue on the journey. And Joel says, you know what I'm in the mood for? Shitty puns, where they get a couple of them out before they, get to that part where they just can't catch a goddamn break. As they're walking, as they're approaching, were they a little too, uncautious here. What'd they scout out? They didn't see people here. I guess they were good hidden. But they get approached from behind. We see a flashbang go out. They're knocked to the ground. Joel gets knocked out with a gun. Ellie gets taken away. And the next thing we see is Joel waking up. The immediately to his right, which is, obviously he's got to be purposeful, is a firefly symbol. So, hey, it was the fireflies. We made it to where we were trying to go. Not necessarily in the fashion that we'd like. But then Marlene walks up. She's with the fireflies. Says, how the hell did you do it? I lost half my crew getting out here and I still nearly fucking died. How'd you do it, Joel? He says it was all her. He's like, she would have been dead on day one. He's like, there's one person I never wanted to be indebted to, and that's you. But Joel immediately is, asking, where's she at? Where is Ellie? Marlene lets her know that she's being prepped for surgery. The doctor thinks that he can create a cure from her. The cordyceps in her, he believes, has been since birth. So calling back to, what we saw in the very first scene of this episode here. He thinks that he can take it out, multiply it, and then be able to spread it and have a cure. The use of cure is very interesting, and, immunization or cure, there's a difference. We're going to talk about it a little bit earlier, or a little bit later here as well. But Joel, quick on his feet, says, cordyceps grows in the brain. And that's when we find out, this is, Marlene knows too. She knows exactly what she says. I don't have any other choice. Joel says, find another person. They can't. They have no other choice. There is no other person that they know of or that they've found that's been is infected, has this scenario where the cordyceps thinks she is cordyceps. But Marlene spins it when Joel says, you don't understand. Marlene does understand. That's what that backstory gives us there. I was there when she was born, Joel. I was best friends with her mother throughout her whole entire life. She made me promise to keep her safe. I do understand. I'm the only one that understands. But it has to happen. I have no other choice. Joel says, I do. Very Joelish. So we see this gray here. Marlene is having to make a decision for the greater good, and Joel is having to make a decision in terms of, himself as well as his life here. He says, I do. And then Marlene, I guess because she is indebted to him, says, we're going to let him go. Take him out to the highway, give him this being Ellie's knife. So it's interesting how this knife passes hands throughout this episode. We see it in a variety of ways. But she lets him go. Joel wouldn't have done this. I can tell you that right now. Joel is a no loose ends kind of guy, and we're going to see that a whole lot in a second here. And we've seen it throughout this series as well. But Marlene, I guess because she's indebted to him, lets him go. She obliges with her side of the contract. Joel did this for her. He got Ellie all the way out here. He is in debt, or she is in debt. So she doesn't kill him. She does say, if he tries anything, shoot him, which, is the right move there. But this is the morally correct thing to do. She has no reason to necessarily kill Joel, but she sure as hell should have. And what we've learned from this series is, in a brutal world like this, no loose ends is typically the best way to go about things, even though it's not morally right. So a lot of gray in here because, transactionally, it's the right thing to do. So you should do this because you're ensuring your safety, but it's not the right thing to do because, you're murdering. Joel's a no loose ends kind of guy. We've seen it from last episode when he was interrogating those people, kills them both out even though he gets what he wants. Morally wrong, transactionally right. When they arrive in Kansas City, that kid who's pleading for his life, he says, I'll go back to my mom. I won't say a thing. No fucking shot, dude. You're going to bring him after us. No fucking shot. Like, I don't believe you. I have to kill you. Pop. You're out, man. But we see Joel being escorted in this next scene here. And I'm thinking this, too, because, she's being prepped for surgery. I'm like, goddamn, clock's ticking, Joel. Clock's ticking. Is this going to be another time where, the gun is pointed on him? He can't act to save a loved one. He's had this happen to him a few times throughout the series. Sarah in the very first episode, a couple other times in terms of, when they first arrive and Tommy's crew walks up on him. That's one that's ringing out in my head. He can't do anything there. He can't act on it. I mean, it probably wouldn't have worked out, but he has to be submissive and allow for, them to take him. It works out in the end. But this is his main anxiety, is not being able to save his loved ones, not being able to, act in that moment and take matters into his own hands. But Joel, as he's walking down the steps, he's like, I was thinking, how long is he going to take it? Is he going to go all the way out to the highway and like reroute and come around from another angle and attack? It's like, that's going to be too damn long, dude. She's going to be gone. But Joel's being walked down the steps. He's being very reluctant, I guess. Not necessarily very reluctant, but he's stopping in odd places. You can tell he's thinking. He's contemplating something in his head. He's thinking, when do I make this move? And finally, as they're going down the steps, someone approaches him, says, what the fuck are you doing? Get going. Joel turns it, pops him, pops the other. He's down on the ground, says, where is she? Guy's like, basically, I'm not telling you anything. I don't know if does he say, no, I don't think he says, I'm not telling you anything. But Joel essentially says, I'm not waiting on this. I don't have time for this. Kills him. No loose ends, baby. That guy's not probably not going to get up, but hey, not worth the time. Pop him. Let's get moving. In this next montage, shit was tight. He does pick up Ellie's knife off the guy who had it too, so changes hands again there. But this next montage where the music is playing, our sound in the real world is kind of muffled, so you hear the cartridges kind of pop into the ground, and just overall fucking sick. The Joel montage taking everyone out. He doesn't get shot. These guys are stormtroopers. They are bots. And they really highlight the brutality of Joel throughout this. Multiple times people are laying on the ground, basically incapacitated. He double taps people. He puts them out, dude. No fucking loose ends. I told you. This is what Marlene should have done, truthfully. But she made the morally right decision, thus creating the, transactionally wrong decision, because Joel should have been dead, and then all of this could not have happened. But Joel's putting people out, and it's brutal, man. You're seeing dead bodies. You're seeing close-ups on faces, and gray. Joel, you're a bad dude. You're a bad dude in your own way, man. Like, I get your reasoning behind this, but at the same time, it's like, man, this is bad. You're killing a lot of people for this who, really aren't doing an overtly bad thing. They're trying to do this for the greater good. But that is just, that's The Last of Us. That's the gray that we see throughout this. But the music and sounds in this scene are awesome. Joel finally approaches the OR where we see him, tell him, unhook him. The doctor who's about to operate says, I won't let you do this. He gets a fucking scalpel. Are you serious, dude? Are you serious? I mean, I guess you had to do something if you're going to fight, but you played your cards pretty weird there, man. You think a scalpel against a gun's going to do anything? This guy who just literally killed every fucking firefly in the building? Smart. Real smart. I guess he doesn't know that he's done that yet, but still, man, if he's there, he's probably done something. He's probably killed him, so you could assume that. You think your scalpel's going to do it? Nope, it doesn't. He begins approaching Joel, takes one step before. Joel almost no looks him, man. He is so indifferent to this shit when he shoots him. Doesn't give a fuck. He just wants Ellie. There are some, I guess, female nurse anesthetists or whatever the hell they are, some kind of nurses. I'm not a doctor. I don't know the right terms, but these helpers of the surgeon. He says, turn around, unhook her, get her shit taped up, walks up to her, and begins walking out. He arrives in this garage with Ellie, and very conveniently, the most convenient fucking car in the whole damn world is sitting here. The battery getting ran up, juiced up. So, hey, let's give Joel a very easy exit. It's like the end of a Hitman a Hitman mission. If you've ever played that video game where you just have to go to a certain part in the video game, they're just, it's planned for the escape, of course. But yeah, Joel approaches this car. Not going to be that easy, of course. Marlene walks up to him, where we have, the big debate of The Last of Us here. Marlene says, we have this dynamic between, Joel, Marlene, their wants, their wills, what they think's the right thing here. So it's, save the world or save Ellie. And the perplexity of this is that, Marlene's saying, you can still turn this around, Joel. We can still get this. We can still make this right. After all you've done, it doesn't have to be this way. And Joel says something like, you don't get to decide. Or she says, what she's basically saying, are you going to let her live in a broken world like this where she's probably going to die, get killed by raiders? And Joel's like, maybe, but that's not for you to decide. And Marlene says, neither do you, which is incredibly valid. Who gets to make this decision here? Who's right in their decision? And what it comes down to is it probably should be Ellie's. It's her life that is going to be sacrificed for the greater or the potential greater good of others. Marlene says, what would she decide? You know it. You know what she would decide. She would decide to go through with this. Joel doesn't care, though, This is his lifeline now. And this is what people will continue to debate about forever, is this decision that he makes here. So we flash right then and there between Joel driving away. So, what he did. But we do get a flashback to it. Kind of flashes in between Joel driving, Ellie waking up, and Joel shooting Marlene. So we see that he does that. Joel lies to Ellie in this moment. He says, they found a bunch of other people just like you, and they decided that they stopped working on a cure. They're not going to find one. Raiders attacked, and I just barely got you out of there. And Ellie asks about Marlene. He just doesn't even answer that. But we jump back to that again, where Joel's already shot her, once and twice. He's putting Ellie in the car to leave that garage scene, and we hear kind of Marlene cough up, and Joel walks over to her. Marlene says, you don't have to do this. And as I mentioned earlier, the way Joel plays it is no fucking loose ends, man. He says, you just come after her. And he's damn right. This is the same mindset that Marlene should have carried with her in this situation. She should have put Joel out. None of this would have happened. We would have seen if the cure worked. We would have been able to have this, operation occur. No loose ends on Joel's part. Marlene, you're just going to come after her. You're gone. And we cut over to, where we're traveling again. The car is broken down. They decide that they have to hike. And they begin hiking. And we get some nice dialogue. So once again, they're talking about Sarah. Joel brings it up and just kind of comparing Sarah, not necessarily comparing, more so contrasting Sarah and Ellie. But he says, she would have liked you. You're not as girly. Not saying that you're not girly. Ellie says, I'm not girly. Okay, cool. And he says, she had a killer smile. Not saying you don't have a killer smile. But, you would have made her laugh. You would have been, you're funny. You would have made her laugh. So I think you guys would have been friends, which, I think that was really pretty. And then Ellie decides to share a bit about herself. So really good episode, and a bit of, both of these people telling more about their backstory, some really dark truths of their life that haven't been shared yet. This Ellie depicts the scene that we never got. I would have loved to see it because shit, that would have been strong. That shit would have been tough. But she explains, you know how I said it wasn't my first time killing someone? When I got bit, I wasn't alone. I was with Riley. And we had this idea that we were going to be all poetic and let ourselves lose our minds together. She did. And I had to kill her. We never get it. It was explained here. I do think it's a miss, but I think it does contribute in a way to her revealing it and saying it for the first time because we don't see it. So it's still like, we're Joel. We're hearing this for the first time ourselves because, if you hadn't played the video game, if you didn't know this, Ellie could have left and just let her be there. But we assumed, but still hearing it from her and having her, lay this on the table, explain this dark truth is impactful in that way. And I think it's good that it's covered, it was stated, it was said. But man, if we would have saw that shit, woof, that'd have been crazy. I think it could have gone in that episode, to be honest there. So I think that is a miss on their part, but that's okay. No worries there. It would have been brutal. It would have been tough television, but it would have been powerful television. Anyways, Ellie is saying all this because she says, Riley was the first to die. Then it was Tess, going on. But she says to Joel, she's like, because she doesn't, I think, she knows. She knows something's up with Joel. She knows who Joel is. She knows the decisions that Joel would make. She says, swear to me what you said about the Fireflies and everything was true. And the gray lingers on, guys. Joel says, I swear. There's the season. What a terrible way to end the season on me. I just did a farting noise. But anyways, yes, there is the end of the season. Joel lies straight to her face. To protect her, presumably. Ellie wants more than anything to believe Joel. But deep down, I don't think she does. I think she understands this and knows this. So Wolf, the gray, the decision that was made there. Concluding thoughts on this, guys. The perplexity of this position and decision is just what makes The Last of Us so damn great. This story came from a video game, guys. This is tough stuff, It can go either way. Joel, very much in this episode, is the bad guy. Let's be honest, He stopped the potential of finding a cure. He killed a lot of, no one's wholly innocent in this world. There's more of that gray, but he killed a lot of people who weren't, meaning to do him harm for his selfish reasons of saving a loved one. Marlene, has to sacrifice a life. This is probably, the morally right decision, though, like for the greater good. But, how do you quantify one life? There's these questions that, there's no correct answer necessarily there. We can tell, what would be greater, the greater good. You can make it quantifiable. You could make it, a numbers game. And that's where you come to Marlene's point. But at the same time, let's think about this, guys. Could they realistically, even if the cure works here, can they realistically even implement this and make it something that is actually going to bring the world back? There's this big point, like I mentioned earlier, cure versus immunization. Does this mean that they would be able to, theoretically cure the people who are currently infected? You would very much think not, right? So if all you're doing is giving people an immunization and keeping them from getting infected, what does that even really change? Tess said this earlier in the series, infected will still rip you apart. they're still going to exist. Raiders are still out there. Will this cure even work? I thought a lot about the science of this. What's making this bit of cordyceps different from, just an infected cordyceps, since the infected cordyceps still believes that it's cordyceps. So why couldn't something be produced from that? I would imagine they've tried, but what's so different about Ellie's? Ellie's is, I guess it's linked with someone who is currently living, so it is not growing more, but that's what cordyceps does. Like, it still grows. So these are just overly probably overlooking into like the scientific aspects of this from someone who's not a scientist. But hey, let's say the cure does work. Let's say the immunization does work. It's still a goddamn dangerous world, and I don't know how you bring back civilization anyway. So, for a fart in the wind potential, I'm gonna hop on Joel's side here just because I want to see, him and Ellie still be alive. So, Marlene is doing this because she believes this can be a change. I just think realistically, it's still, even if you do somehow come up with a cure, you don't have the facilities to bring this all about. There's still a mass amount of the population that is infected. That's what I mean. Is there the question between cure and immunization? Can we bring these people back? Is that how it would work? But even if there's just very dangerous infected throughout the world, this is still, the world's not going to get better. You're not changing that. There's still raiders. We've fallen off the grid pretty far at this point. It's going to take a long time, so maybe, this is definitely a long-term play, or would have to have been. But if we look at just, Team Joel or Team Marlene, and the overarching theme of The Last of Us, and what makes it so damn great, is that no one is fully right, no one is fully wrong. There's this gray where the decisions are tough to make, and there's not a right one either time. So, neither's making the right decisions, neither's making the wrong decision. And at the end of the day, Joel, with the will to, make morally wrong decisions in this world that is morally wrong, comes out on the happy side of things, but at the same time, it's still tainted because he has to lie to this loved one. But I think he's better off with her than without. So where's season 2 go, guys? I'm completely unaware because I have never played part 2 of the video game. So I don't know this story. I think it's going to be a little bit different too. They also mentioned that it's not going to be fully just part 2 of the video game. I think there's going to be more stuff to it. There's probably going to be a lot more, a lot more liberties that they take in season 2 in terms of just telling this story and everything like that. But really excited for it. If anything from this season tells me anything about the seasons going forward, is that we're in good hands, guys. Seasons can fall off as time goes on. That's potential because, this first story is the one that's so truly beloved, but this world is still one that is beloved. There's critical people. The second video game isn't widely loved. There's a lot of criticism about it. So we'll see. I'm excited for it. I think it'll be, almost more interesting. It'll be further away from what we originally seen. And this world is incredibly compelling, incredibly interesting to, watch occur, and the decisions that people have to make, humanely, inhumanely, and, the gray that just follows along any kind of, survival story where it's like, hey, to survive, bad decisions have to be made. So you try to take the best path you can, but you're not going to come out of it with clean hands by any means, guys. But great episode. Way to tie everything up. Way to clean it up there. Hopping into our IMD or my rating of this episode. I brought this one at 5, so middle of the pack here. The way our tally ends here, I have episode 3 with Bill and Frank coming in at 1. Episode 5 with Henry and Sam comes in at 2nd for me. Episode 8, so our previous episode with that creepy-ass David motherfucker, comes in at 3. And then episode 1, I still have that at 4 just because of how awesome that first scene is. I'm perplexed about this because it doesn't really, it's still good for the story, but it does fall off in terms of energy and just overall product in the last bit because nothing necessarily happens. I guess they escape and get the journey beginning, but I really love the beginning of that first episode, which was half of that episode. Episode 9 here coming in at 5. Good way to tie everything up. Episode 6, this is the episode with the arrival in, was it Jamestown? It was where Tommy was living. Anyways, the arrival there and all that, the dependency of Ellie on Joel that is really highlighted in that episode, I thought was really great. Episode 7, so this is the one with the Riley backstory, coming in at 7 for me. And then episode 2 at 8, so this is the one with Tess where she passes or, goes out in blazes of glory, so that's not necessarily passing, but blows everything up there. And then episode 4, when they originally arrive in Kansas City, coming in at 9 for me. What a great season. There is not a bad episode in the bunch. I wonder how the rewatchability is going to be on it. I wonder if I come closer to it upon watching it a second time over. I don't know when that'll happen or when I'll do it. Maybe in preparation for season 2. But we'll see, guys. I'm really excited for it. Really looking forward to it. I don't have a timeline on it right now. But as we start to hear news about it, I'm sure I'll let you guys know. Let's look at the IMDb rating of this episode, where it came out, where it ranks. I'm going to be honest. I think I got a quick glimpse of it. I tried to not see, but I think it has a pretty good rating so far. Yep, so coming in at 9.1 is Look for the Light. So overall in the season, we had a lot of 9s. What's my overall ranking? I think yesterday I gave it an 8.5, but I would have to look more into this, guys. I'm going to give it, if I'm doing a grading scale, put it this way. Getting a 10 is going to be impossible to some extent for me. So don't expect a 10. It's not going to happen. It's just, it's impossible. It doesn't happen, right? But something like Long Time, that's probably like a 9.5 upper echelon for me. So overall, let's give it a 90, guys. A nice A, right on the border, right there. You could do 92. You could go anywhere from 8.75 to 9.25, in my opinion, and I don't think you're going to be too far off there. But I had a blast watching this one. I'm super excited to see what they do going forward, and cannot wait for that. But let's hop into our categories, guys. Let's talk about our favorite scenes. Let's talk about our favorite characters. And let's talk about our favorite other themes and things. My favorite scenes of the episode, the first of which being the on the ground scene. So when they first get to the ground and they see that army camp, that dialogue between Ellie and Joel is really strong. Loved the turn where Joel, is openly talking about Sarah. Admits or lets Ellie know how he got the scar, who shot at him. It was me. I was the one who shot at myself and missed. Really strong there. Next one being that Joel being escorted out and then that rescue montage. Whoa. I could watch that one over again many a time. So they did really well, very well put together scene. The sound of it, the music playing, the brutality that they show in Joel, the capturing of this gray, double tapping people, putting them out, no loose ends. Joel's a bad guy. He's a bad guy, but he's doing it to some extent for a just cause, however you want to look at it. I told you I'm Team Joel. I don't trust these cracker-ass doctors anyways to come up with a cure, so that rescue montage was sweet. And then finally that garage, Marlene and driving away scene where Joel's faced with this decision, and Marlene puts it pretty well. Marlene's right too. She's like, you don't have the decision; it should be hers, which Joel does earlier in the season as well when they're about to leave Jamestown, I believe is what it is. When they're about to leave that, he says, you know what? I was going to leave and run away, but I think you deserve the decision to go with me or Tommy. And she decides him. She should have the decision in this as well. It's her life. It's on the line. So Unfortunately, Joel's not going to let it to get to that point. So he makes the decision for himself, takes it into his own hands for selfish reasons, of course. But at the end of the day, I don't believe in the cure anyways. Fuck them. But my favorite scene of the episode is going to be that Joel rescue montage showing what he can do, what he's capable of, and him finally making the decision or being able to act behind, the gun, be able to fight for his loved one, not just having to be submissive because it looks like, hey, there's nothing he can do about it. He takes matters into his own hands and ends up accomplishing what he wanted to do. Favorite characters of the episode? Anna, great to see her as Ashley Johnson. As I mentioned earlier, awesome to get some of the original voice actors from the video game back in here. She did a great job in that role. Very small, so it's not going to win it for me, but really good for backstory in the scene. Marlene, this was her best episode of the season. So, in her own small way, we'll say she won. She didn't win it for me, but, Marlene, great character in this, played by, Merle Dandridge. I feel for her. She's making a right decision. She had to make a super fucking hard decision, too. This is the daughter of someone that this is the daughter of an individual she swore to protect. Or she swore to protect the daughter of this individual who she was best friends with for her whole life. But when it came down to it, and for the greater good of humanity, she has to sacrifice her. It's an incredibly tough decision, and I feel for her because she's making probably the morally right decision here. Ellie by Bella Ramsey. Good. I'm not going to say it was a weak performance by her, but there's not as much here that, says, okay, I think she won that one for sure. Great, thorough. And I believe also they mentioned that, if Bella Ramsey wants to come back and play Ellie for season 2, we're not going to recast her, even though it's going to be further down in terms of her life. So I wonder how they'll accomplish that in showing the age gap or the difference here. I guess maybe they'll rough her up, maybe give her a new haircut. I think she's going to have some tattoos maybe. So we might be seeing a pretty beastly Ellie in seasons to come in Bella Ramsey if she continues in the role. And then finally Joel, played by Pedro Pascal. I don't know if he's won a lot of these, but he's going to win one of these guys, or he's going to win this one for me, guys. As I said, he's finally able to act behind the gun. He's finally able to take matters into his own hands. His main anxiety in his life is failing his loved ones, not being able to save them. So you understand why he makes this decision in this moment here. He does. He fights back, and he does save Ellie, his loved one. Other themes and things. Family can love Ellie, Joel. So we see this. Ellie, we see growth in their characters too. They're fully there for each other at this point. Ellie says, wherever we go, I'll follow you. We'll go to the moon if you want, kind of deal. Calling back on a few moments there and things that they discussed throughout the season. So they're together. This is their family. This is their love. Joel tells you, this is why we go on. It wasn't time that healed me. It was love. It was family. And then finally, Joel making the decision here to save Ellie because he loves her, because she's his family, because she's what drives him and keeps life worth living for him. Marlene, I guess, shows it in a different way, to an extent. Anna is her, her family. And then, Ellie, she has some kind of reason to really cherish and love her and want to protect her because of that familial kin love aspect. It's not as, I guess, it doesn't overarch the greater good of humanity, so it's just a different perspective. And is it the wrong one? Not necessarily. Is it the right one? Not necessarily. Great. But yeah, our couple other things, the flashbacks. So we do get another flashback in this episode. We get to see some more backstory. I think it's good. I think it's strong. Music, not really anything that I noticed anyways. And then setting. I think this is a good pullback to our setting where we get to see some more of that cityscape of a town that was, bombed, blown up. And, we see those giraffes. They're on a little baseball field or an athletics field of some sort. So all that stuff is just really cool. Sets the, sets the setting. I've said that so many goddamn times on this podcast. Not this one in particular, but other episodes on it. But overall, guys, the winning theme and thing of this episode is the gray. We see it in a variety of ways. It is the literal main versus duality in this episode here. Joel, Marlene and the Fireflies, the will. Greater good, save Ellie. Are they going to come up with a cure? Is it really going to work? Is it worth a life? Is it even going to be able to be implemented? All these questions. Joel, killing people who meant him no harm. Someone who literally just let him go. And then when Marlene begs for mercy, fuck it, man. You just come after her. Bop. It's me and Ellie, not you. And it's not me, Ellie, and Marlene. So the gray, throughout the whole season, we feel it in a variety of ways. It's the type of world that we live in this The Last of Us world, where hard decisions are made, bad decisions are made, but prospectively, they're not wholly bad. They're not, obviously they're not wholly good, but hey, there's the trade-off, guys. There's the gray, and that's the main theme of The Last of Us as a whole. So highlights of the episode, guys. We have the favorite scene being the escort Joel rescue montage. Favorite character being Joel, played by Pedro Pascal, and the theme/thing as the gray. Coming in at number 3 will be the Joel montage. Number 2, Joel by Pedro Pascal. And number 1, guys, the theme/thing of the whole entire season, the gray. What a season it's been. What a fucking gray season it's been. Woof. I enjoyed it. Like I said, man, I wonder how this watch or rewatch through will be and how it'll go, because I think I'm going to enjoy it, just as much, if not more, see some new things along the way. But we're not there yet. It'll probably take until season 2, or, maybe I'll find a way to go back into it and watch it another time. But it's been a great time following this series, guys. We're going to have some more of it coming soon. The Last of Us is wrapping up. It is done. So I'm going to be a little bit less busy lately, but I'm not going to let myself. I'll do other things. I'll pick up some sports. I'll pick up some video game stuff, as well as, Succession's coming out right around the corner as well. So maybe, I will be following that as a rewatchable, not a rewatchable, like a recap and review as well. That one will be moving over to our Purple TV and Film podcast. We will no longer be doing it on the Purple podcast. Another thing to know, I guess when season 2's come out, I will be doing that on the Purple TV and Film as well going forward. Just wanted to wrap this one up on the Purple podcast, keep it all in the same place. But yeah, guys, it's Wednesday, it's hump day. We got a long one in here. We got it in before the work day, so hey, got a whole day of work to do at this point now, but we do it for you guys. I love you guys. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it always. Purple Podcast, episode number 45.